Good afternoon, everyone. We'll just wait a few more moments while a few more people are joining today's webinar. So it looks like we've got some more people joining us. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Jonathan from Generate, and welcome to this month's important topic on the topic of the importance of growth post-pandemic, considerations to help you build a practice that can weather any storm. Very exciting. Today, we have two fantastic speakers and experts in business, leadership and accounting, Craig Yardley and Jennifer Myers, who are both passionate about helping businesses succeed. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items to mention. At the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button, and that'll pop up in the Q&A box where you can enter your questions, and Craig and Jennifer will address these questions towards the end of the webinar. Also on your screen, there is the chat function, and you can toggle who to send your comments to, whether that be to everyone in the webinar or to the panelists and hosts only. Finally, we are recording this webinar, and if you would like a copy of this to be shared to you or to share to others, please let us know via the chat and we can definitely arrange this for you after the webinar. Now, without further ado, please welcome Craig and Jennifer.
Hey team,
Afternoon all. It's nice to actually be sitting side by side and feeding off each other for a change.
on the computers going on. I can't tell what you're up to, Craig, but I need you to jump in and speak. Team, it's good to be back with you this month. And yep, as Jono kindly mentioned, I'm Jennifer Myers. This is Craig Yardley. And for those of you that have been with us over the past few months, we are Generate Business and Life Solutions. And I think we have now done these for almost a year.
Wow, time flies.
It has. So it's nice to be able to bring you information that can be helpful to you. So we trust that you've got some place to take notes and to capture what we're saying today, so that if you choose to implement something afterward that can help you, you've got the ability to go back and remember what notes you took down. So Craig, if you want to just say just a little quick something about yourself to people who may not have met you yet.
Oh, married, happily, coming up 28 years, happily, 5 children, and really enjoy helping people achieve what they do and giving back to the community and what we do as well.
Cool. Thank you for that. Jennifer Myers, also married happily, just hit 27 years. So yeah, we're old timers in the marriage game, aren't we? So yep, have a daughter who's at uni this year for the first time. She's turned 18. I'm from the States, but I've been here for 10 years. So yeah, I'm a Kiwi by choice. I've become a citizen, so not going back, especially now. So anyway, that's the two of us. And yeah, just love sharing information that can help people. That's just fantastic. Watching the light bulbs go off over people's heads is just kind of like spins my wheels. So it's kind of cool. What we're going to talk about today is the following. We're going to run through where we are right now. What's the reality of the current situation? Short-term versus long-term thinking when it comes to growth. We'll cover off some sensible long-term strategies and remind you to not forget about profitability. So all that stuff will tie together as we move forward. There's a couple of things that we've got on offer at the moment, so we'll share those with you towards the end, and how to get in touch. There's a special bonus that we've got for you, so stick with us at the end there. We'll give that to you, and the opportunity for you to ask questions. So let's dive in, because we got heaps of things to talk about today. For those of you that may have seen this in the past, we'll just go through it really quickly. But yeah, what do? We help our clients in the medical and dental industries across New Zealand to strategize, to make plans, to put those strategies into action, to grow their practices consistently and profitably, and to exit. So what is the next step, right? When it's time for the next thing, how do you make sure that that's a smooth transition for you, your family, and your team? Excuse me. How do we do that? I'm going to kick over you to read these, Craig, because I have a problem with my throat.
Yep. So what we like to do is form a relationship with our clients, because we find that a good relationship helps people achieve more. We like to educate them. That doesn't mean that we do it in a teacher way, because most people think of education as a teacher standing up. We like to work alongside people. You know, if you can teach a person to fish, they'll continue fishing forever. And we have plenty of resources behind us to help support all that we do.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. I think I'm back under control. So why generate? There's just a couple of points there about the fact that, yeah, we're New Zealanders serving New Zealanders. We're small enough to be able to customize what we do to you, but big enough to have a wide team of extended professionals that can help our clients. So let's dive into today, because I've got lots of cool things to share with you, and have asked Craig to pull together some specific thoughts. Normally we kind of play off each other quite a bit in these sessions, but I've asked Craig to bring some specific notes today, so he'll be taking the lead in a couple of spots here. So where are we, right? Oops, let me go backwards. I'm getting ahead of myself. Where are we? What a strange time we've had over the last few months, eh? Some of us have really kind of been busier than ever, while others have been kind of sitting on our hands and wishing we could work. I've been in touch with a handful of you over the past couple of months, just to kind of check in and find out how you're dealing with what's happening. And what I've kind of heard from those people I've spoken to has been frustration with uncertainty of when things were going to change and get back to normal. There's been a bit of struggling with safety measures at the time, and there's a few instances of disappointing reactions from your staff, which was interesting feedback to get. So I'm not quite sure where you've been and what's exactly been up with you over the past couple of months, but today I just want to take a minute and commend each and every one of you who are here today, that you've come through and that you're still putting aside time to develop yourself and your abilities and your skills and to learn. So thank you for making time to be here today. We appreciate that. So moving forward, basically what we need to make sure we're focused on is a growth strategy that's right for you, and that's going to really be vitally important over the next few months, right? So that we can finish out this strange year strong. The more money we keep moving through our economy, the better. The more patients we have who pay their bills, the more clients we have who pay their bills, allow us to pay our bills and our suppliers to pay theirs. It's a big circle, right? So money supply is in constant motion. It never stops and hangs out with one business or one person. It's constantly moving. So the faster, the better we do our bit to really not only keep it flowing, but flowing a little bit faster to that next business or that next household is a good thing. So speaking from households, I come from a family that was really education focused, so I'm a bit of a word nerd. So, every single one of these presentations, I always have to put in a definition, don't I? So a definition is coming up at you right now, and that's the definition of growth. So growth is the process of increasing the amount, value, or importance. And the thing that I love most about this particular definition is the word process. It is nearly impossible to experience significant growth overnight without some sort of process and hard work in place. It'd be really nice to wave a magic wand and instantly double the size of your practice, or be in a different or growing position. But unless you're a YouTube wannabe who suddenly strikes it rich overnight and has a video go viral, that's just not the real world that we all live in. So it really happens, growth really happens by building relationships, and it takes time and patience and consistency. So I wanted to share with you really quickly, we're going to dive into a bit of short versus long-term thinking when it comes to practice growth. So we need to consider not only the Band-Aid, right, the plaster or the short-term tactic, but longer-term strategies as well, which is kind of like surgery to correct the root problem. So short-term tactics are really designed to achieve a specific goal, like book X number of appointments each week for the next 4 weeks, for example. And the definition of strategy is much more overarching and big picture, right? So the definition of that is planning and directing overall military operations and movements in war or battle. Is business war?
Can be sometimes.
It's the long stretch, isn't it? So basically that means a long-term strategy takes a lot more thought and planning than a short-term tactic. So let's quickly take a look at some some short-term tactics that can be helpful in the right situation. So there's a heap of short-term things that we can do to drive more patients to our practice, but they're really only working while we actively engage in them, or while we actively have that process going. So at times, short-term strategies can be sensible when we need to kind of make our market aware of a new service, or that we've added a new provider who's joined the practice and is accepting new patients. So tactics that might be able to work in that situation, some pretty simple things that almost anyone can do. If you've got a Facebook page, right? Having a social media presence and using Facebook ads can be useful in that situation. So again, a short-term strategy, turn it on, turn it off, and notify your following. Letterbox drops, they're still a thing. I get them in my letterbox all the time.
Yep.
Not that I really want them, but you know, if it's the right thing, I can pick it up and go, hey, I didn't know that. So they can be useful in the right situation. And creating special packages of services, or packaging a product with a service that's already popular in your practice to build awareness of that new product and kind of move some of that and get some initial uptake on it. So, you know, in a few instances, those can be helpful. Today, I really want to focus for you on that more complicated, that more strategic thinking. So we're going to focus a bit more on equipping you with some information and thinking processes that can really help you to consider how to build a robust, long-term growth strategy.
So one of the things you could add to that short term is you've all got databases, you've all got a heap of people who you know because you've serviced them before. How often do you actually go back and look at when somebody hasn't turned up for so many years? You know, so being proactive with what you have is a good short-term strategy.
Absolutely, because it's kind of, yeah, they already know you, like you, trust you. So when was the last time you spoke to them and offered them something? Yeah, exactly. So when we think about long-term strategies, that might include acquisition or merger, right? Some of your colleagues may not have come through these past few months intact and are going to have patients who need looking after. Is it possible to buy another practice in a good location with a loyal patient base, or would it make sense to hire another practitioner to help you grow? Or maybe there's a few, you know, good ones, practitioners who have been orphaned and are seeking a new home. Those decisions really require considering a number of factors to ensure that they're profitable long-term choices. So I kind of like to think that that first one, acquisition, kind of sits between the short and long term, because you can get an immediate boost, and yet it's a long-term process to kind of build relationships with the new people who don't yet know you. So, you know, how do you kind of see that, Craig, and what kinds of things should we consider if merger or acquisition becomes a viable strategy?
I think this, before I go into the pros and cons or talking about anything on that side, the question a lot of people ask at this time when going through hard times or going through depression or going through these sort of situations is, should I be worried about growing? Should I just make sure that I am who I am and just get the job done? Problem is, if you're not growing, you're dying. And somebody else who's growing can potentially come and sweep you up. The other thing is that in these times, there's more opportunities. And if you have the ability to see through where we are today to what tomorrow looks like, then those opportunities become something that will get you into a place far quicker than otherwise it would be. So yes, there's a risk involved. Life is a risk. Go and drive to work, you're taking a risk. But you've just got to weigh up the pros and cons of these things to make sure you get the right answer at the end of the day. So that's your starting point. I think you've always got to be looking for those opportunities. So when we're talking about acquisition or mergers, there's pros and cons to everything. And one of the, I'll go through a few pros and then a few cons, because we've got to give it the balanced look. So economies of scale is quite straightforward. You know, basically you get a greater number of people over the one cost base. So, and you may be able to move some of your cost base that you've replicated across two into one. So you can make some savings. You can create opportunities. You know, in the market, you might be having a competitor who's challenging you by pushing prices down and pushing prices down and pushing prices down. If you can actually get together with them, you are then one entity, and then the whole price challenge goes out the window, and you can actually start charging the right prices. You can actually lower prices if your costs go down, if you bring two businesses together. But the flip side is, if you don't lower prices, you will have higher profits, because, you know, they're just economies of scale that flick in from that. And you can obtain a competitive edge. You know, it's once again spinning off economies of scale. Today you are only looking at a certain level of work. If you get yourself bigger, you can get more people who can see you. You're more visual in the where you are, and so you can have people going, oh, that's a dentist I'll go and see, and you can actually create more work opportunities out of that, because you can start doing bigger jobs because you're bigger and have, you know, the opportunities there. And you can look at reducing duplication. I mean, that's a standard. I mean, they all sort of spin off economies of scale to some degree. You know, when you reduce the duplication, you've not got everybody doing the same thing twice, 3 times, 4 times. So those are some good pros. Do you got any input on those, Jennifer?
Well, I guess the whole reducing duplication thing, what exactly do you mean by that? Expand on that just a little bit more for me.
Well, if you have two businesses, they're doing the same thing twice.
Yep.
You bring it into one, there's one business doing the one thing once.
Yep.
So that duplication comes at a cost.
Yep.
So you think about 2 rents, right? You bring it down to one rent.
Cool.
So you've removed a duplication. That's simpler.
Cool. So instead of, yes, absolutely. Yep. Good.
Yep. Okay, so that was sort of giving you the pros as we see it. And there's plenty of them out there, but I just brought in what I thought were the ones to highlight best for you. Obviously, there's cons to doing that as well. Biggest one I'd put out there is culture issues. And now we all know what culture is. It's how your business works within the environment or the ecosystem it works in. So if you put 2 ecosystems together that aren't comparable, chalk and cheese, you then end up with more problems than it's worth. So you do need to look at where that acquisition or merger might come from so that it ties in with who you are in the first instance.
I'm going to hop in. Oops.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to hop in right there actually because I was just speaking to a dentist recently who has acquired another practice in our area, and yeah, I said, how's that going? You know, boy, that's exciting. And he kind of looked at me and went, oh, it's a lot more work than I expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, coming back to any of this sort of thing that you're doing in terms of the long-term look, there's a planning time and there's an investment of time, so that you get the right outcome for you at the end. Okay, so it's not a 2-minute thing. You've got to invest your time there. So the other thing you've got to be wary of is, you know, if you start talking mergers or start talking acquisitions, and what's the difference between a merger and acquisition? Quite straightforward. Acquisition, take over. Merger, merge with somebody. So effectively the two come together. The acquisition, you're still the boss and you take it over. Is that if people hear about you going down this track, your team members might get a bit stressed. They might be going, oh no, I'm in central admin. I know the new business coming over is going to have a central admin. Am I going to keep my job? Now, obviously, through this period, having a lot of job losses being announced all around the place, that can be quite stressful for people. So it's one of those things you just need to work your way through. If you end up in a merger proposition, then you're going to have joint decision making. Now, if you're a one-man band at the moment, you know, the biggest thing you got to ask, biggest person you got to convince is yourself. And that may be something you do in the mirror. Yes, I'll do that. But you get other people involved. You then have different personality styles. You then, again, cultural styles. And that just becomes another shooting box to work your way through. But if you've done your homework at the start, then you can actually reduce those sort of pain points. Okay. There is diseconomies of scale. You know, we've talked about economies of scale, which will make sense, but people don't think about diseconomies of scale. What is that? That is when you get so big, you actually start losing efficiency. You start losing the ability to manage in a good way. And so you might have, let's say you've currently got 10 staff members, you then merge, you have 20 staff members, and then you merge again. Before long, you've got 100 staff members. It's actually really hard to see that those staff members, 100 of them, are actually doing their job properly. It's a lot easier to manage a smaller number. So as long as you work in a way to capture measurement, because what you can measure, you can manage, then it can work. But you just got to be aware that that could be an issue that you got to take care of as a con. And unless you've got a lot of money in your back pocket, that'll generally bring on new debt. Okay, there's nothing wrong with good debt, and I would classify merger or acquisition as good debt, but it is still a con for some people. They don't like debt, and so that just becomes something to consider as well. And I think for some too, some people don't like having too many employees, because there's the risk factor of employees, there's getting on with employees. And I think some people, to their detriment, don't grow because of what they classify as hassle of having an employee. You've got to remember that an employee is leveraged towards profit. Okay, and so it's once again a risk factor you've just got to manage. And just putting the right tools in place can achieve that.
But it's doing your homework too. It's
doing your homework.
Hiring the right people, is providing training, it's making sure that they're equipped to do what you need them to do, so you get a result. Yeah.
And I think if you look through historically, to people who've really done well in the world, they've done well because they've taken opportunities in times like this to capture another business or capture another market when everybody else is afraid. And they've bitten the bullet and they've gone in and done that. And I think as long as you're doing it alongside your financial advisor, your bank manager, and a team of people that you are comfortable working with, you can get the right result at the other end.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's
making decisions in isolation often results in poor decisions.
Yeah.
So it's running, finding people who you trust, who are intelligent, who can support you and provide different points of view and challenge you and provide different things to think about.
Yeah. And you know, it's not a case of getting an email from a dental practitioner saying, I'm selling, do you want to buy? And going, yes. That would be crazy. You know, you've got to do your homework. You've got to make sure that what you're doing is the right thing for you, that it's not buying, I guess you could say, a dead business.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just to give you an example, I received a proposal over lockdown. Somebody wanted to sell the accounting firm, and I looked at it, and in terms of the client mix, it was like, that's a bit of a risk to be taken at the moment, and you got to weigh up the risk. And I talked to the bank manager about it, and we agreed that the amount of clients they had on the, I guess you could say, tourism side appeared to be quite large for what they were wanting to be paid. And also, you know, at a time for the accounting firm with the businesses that we support, a question mark on how many of those clients are still going to be around, that became questionable when we said, look, we'll just put that on hold for the moment. Not saying we won't look at opportunities, and I guess you need to consider that as well. Like, you know, you might take on a business. It is tough out there with your clients maybe not having the money, but realistically, you know, a good dental or medical practice is looking after your client needs regardless, and you just got to come up with the right answer at the right time.
And I think a part of the interesting thing when I expanded on the discussion with the dentist I was speaking with, who said, oh, it's a lot more work than I expected. Part of that was a bit of shock over how the patient base that they bought hadn't been touched recently. And so they had been very out of touch with the patient base, which is not helpful when you're stepping in and...
No, it cannot be helpful too, because your clients that you purchase do not actually anticipate or know the services you're going to provide.
Exactly. And
so suddenly they're used to tuning up for a filling 20 years ago at $75 for a filling, and now it might be $150 for a filling. Yeah.
So we've kind of talked about the merger and acquisition thing. What about if you want to grow by adding a chair, adding another exam room, adding a provider? How does that work, the +1 thing?
The +1 thing, be aware +1 doesn't necessarily mean +1. Okay, because if you're going to bring on another, and we'll use a dental business as an example, if you're going to bring on a new dentist, you probably need to bring on a new dental nurse to work with them. Okay, but it's a good strategy in this time because you have fixed costs. And you probably recognise your fixed costs more having been through a close down period, because they still continued. You're still paying your rent, you're still paying your staff a certain amount of dollars, whether they're working or not. So by bringing on more people over the fixed costs, so I'm thinking another chair, yes, there's a cost to put a chair in, but what about the existing chair you've got? And instead of operating at 8 hours a day, operate at 16 hours a day. Now you might go, oh, we're not going to work 16 hours a day. Well, no, you're not. What you do is you spread 2 people over the 1 chair. And what that does is also creates opportunities, because in today's environment, and I've written in my newsletter to my client base, you know, a lot of people found over COVID that we were very fast paced prior to it. And I've had a lot of feedback to say it was actually quite nice to slow down a bit. And the slowing down a bit is like, people want to be able to be more flexible, and when they do things like go to the dentist, they want to think about going to the dentist after 5 if they work 9 to 5. So having more after hours availability can actually bring you in more clients, because you can start being a niche market, because not many people do. No. You might have the odd late night, but what if you're consistently working till 10 o'clock at night, or being open 7 days? Now, for some people, that's not the answer, but I've got a son who works from 2 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's his hours of work. He works up in what you call a dark store for Countdown. So he's the one up in Auckland chasing around, get everyone's grocery orders together during those hours. He loves it. It suits him to the ground. I couldn't think of anything worse. But I think we've got to stop putting our view and preferences onto something else. You just got to say, okay, I've got fixed costs. I've got a building. I've got chairs. I've got interest costs. I've got transport costs. What if I extend my hours, not by me doing more hours, but by somebody who is comfortable doing more hours? You know, and some people are AM people. They might want to get there at 6 o'clock and be finished by lunchtime. Some people are PM people. They want to get there at lunchtime and finish at 8 o'clock. You know, so those are the sort of thinkings that you want to be considering with the +1. But as I said at the start, the +1 doesn't necessarily mean +1, and you just got to build that into your equation. Okay. One of the things that you were asking me before was, you know, what are the key indicators whether you need to be considering this? I mean, to start with, what are your fixed costs? You know, if just by increasing the number of people using you over the timeline, that's going to make you more profitable. You don't have to even increase charges. But really, look at your capacity. You know how many weeks out you have for appointments. Now, there's nothing worse for a client, and you'll know this yourself, ringing to make an appointment because I've got a sore tooth, and yes, you should have emergency times anyway, but they could be taken up. But just general timeline could be, oh, it's 4 weeks before you can get an appointment. Oh, well, I'll go somewhere else that I can get an appointment tomorrow or next week. You know? And so I think you've just got to consider from that perspective, are you at capacity, or are you covering your fixed costs well enough? Can you do better? What are your clients? Are you losing clients because you're not open enough or available enough? And I think one thing to consider also when you go +1, does a +1 have to be a dentist? Could the +1 be a dental nurse only? And so what you do is you've got 2 rooms, and I know one of the issues is hygiene, is you've got to have time between appointments so that the room can be clean for the next person. So what you do is you have your dentist use your room 1 with the dental nurse, finish the job, move to room 2 with another dental nurse, dental assistant, do the job, and while they're doing the job there, the exam room 1 is cleaned down, and then once again backwards and forwards. And so I think you've got to think outside the square. I mean, most industries are changing or have been changed because of COVID. So it's a great time to look at how you do things. Just because you did it yesterday doesn't mean you should do it today. And I think that experience would work for medical practices as well. You look at your doctors, they're the most, I guess the most trained person in the medical practice, generally, from that perspective. You know, is having them do a lot of the small jobs a good use of their time? Can you have nurses doing more of the work that the doctors used to do, be it giving vaccinations or blood samples or whatever they might be doing? So come in, see the doctor, go and see somebody else to do the second part of the treatment, the stuff. Yeah. Just those sort of things to consider so that you can make more out of your most highly paid resource.
Efficiencies. Yes. Yeah. Good. All right. So looking at the +1 scenario, what about moving to a new location? What about if we said, ooh, there's a part of town that's booming, there's a new development even here where we live, there's a great giant new development going in, should I open a practice near that?
Yeah, this is an interesting one that you threw at me, because effectively you've got 2 options. One is you move to a bigger premise, okay, because you're growing, or you've merged, or you acquired another business, and that's fine. That the new business has its pros, or you open another branch, or well, not another branch, but another part of your practice as a branch. Now, the problem with branches is that you've got to have a good management system in place to make them work. Because what you can be doing is spreading your management over 2 locations. And depending how far apart they are, they can actually become a problem. And so by putting a branch in can actually cause you to go backwards if you don't manage it right. You look at, there's a lot of businesses around that have branches and they work well. So I'm not saying it's a no, but you've just got to make sure that you make the right decisions and systems but also a person who can manage those systems well. Because, you know, the old saying, when the cat's away, the mice will play. So if you've got a manager who's really good at managing and spends half a day in each business, but the people act up because he's not there, okay?
Hire the right people.
Oh, exactly. But I'm just saying that is things you need to consider.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, you can look and say, Joe Bloggs, who's across town slightly, he's we know he's going backwards. We know he's looking at retiring. That's an opportunity to potentially go, okay, we're going to move over there and put our systems in place, and either create a branch or go and look for somewhere in the middle and create a bigger
Kind of combine and create a new.
Yeah. And, you know, you've got to be, everyone's aware, of course, that the where we live, as Jennifer was saying, we've probably got about 300 to 400 houses coming on stream in the very near future. Hamilton, which is the biggest city next to us, between us and the city, there's about a 300 plot development happening. And so the ideal for certain businesses is to be where the people are. And so they're the sort of opportunities you want to be looking for, you know, especially if your building lease is coming up and you're going, well, is where we are the best thing? If you notice new clients turning up all the time and they have constant addresses in that new area, you start asking yourself the question, should we put a branch over there? Should we be a little bit closer? What should we do in that sort of scenario? So you know, a new location works. And also, I think if your building's starting to look a little bit drab, then either spruce it up a bit or take an opportunity to go and find somewhere that looks a bit better. Why? Because people are paying generally medical professionals a good dollar. And I think that they have a little bit of concern that if they're paying top dollar, why isn't where they're going looking top dollar? Not suggesting gold level.
But I don't want to walk into a practice that looks like all of its equipment is from the 70s, or the, you know, the seating is,
And I think people are aware that there's new technologies all the time. I mean, I remember when my dentist went from having the big X-ray machine for your teeth that was, you know, huge, and just a little wee one goes against your mouth now, you know, and then he describes to me how he's making a tooth in-house rather than having to send it to a lab. And you know, technologies are there, and you know, they're good to get into, but you've got to make them work.
Cool. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Actually, what we're going to work on, team, is pulling together a resource that's readable and digestible with the information that Craig just went through around some of that stuff. And I'll let you know, those of you that are on the webinar today will be the first to know, so thank you for being here, where to find that. So I'll email you specifically and say, hey, the resource about growth strategies, long-term growth strategies is up online. Here's where you can find it. So that's coming. So if you choose to grow versus long-term marketing strategies, right? There's the acquisition, there's the growing with people, and there's also the marketing end of things. Then be prepared to be consistent and patient. They're not designed to drive immediate people through the door. It never seems to happen that way, but they are designed to build your brand awareness and get you better positioned in the market that you want to be in. So it's basically trying to create your brand or your practice being top of mind for great reasons with your target market. Creating a long-term growth strategy takes planning and thought. So it's really kind of you know, planning around your message, the timing of your message, what channels you're going to send it out through, and being consistent and identifying who on your team or an external team member who can assist you to be consistent, because sometimes you don't have the skills within your team to do what needs to be done to execute that long-term strategy. So finding those resources to help you. Here at Generate, we utilize external support. John is one of those that helps us get the webinars set up in the background, and also helps us to get newsletters out to our database, which is, I mean, could we do it? Yes. Should we invest our time doing it? Nah, we have different skills that are better used, you know, creating useful things, articles and programs that we can share with you that will help you, right? That's where our expertise lies. One of those tools and things that we've created that can be helpful for you is called the 4 pillars of marketing. So the 4 pillars of marketing, you're seeing that in front of you right now. Now this chart basically has an abbreviated list of channels, ways that you can execute each one of the purposes across the pillars But just today, I wanted to give you a few so that we can kind of take a little sneak peek at how this works. So basically, the 4 pillars of marketing works like this. You've got pillar 1 up on the left-hand side, which the purpose of pillar 1 are activities that build your business brand, Pillar number 2 are activities that build your personal brand, and I'll explain that difference here in a minute. Pillar number 3 are activities that build your database, or the group of prospects and clients that you can talk to on a regular basis and stay in front of. And pillar 4 are activities that build your relationships. So if we head back over here to the left-hand side, building your business brand, basically the benefit of that is increasing market awareness. How can you do that? Well, they're pretty blunt instruments for the most part. Awareness, right? Your logo, your tagline, your face, whatever that might be, that is your brand, can be put out in places like radio, sponsoring at local clubs or sponsoring a sports team, using billboard, right? Mass media. Your website is a pretty blunt instrument, right? Anybody can find it who's Googling dentists, hopefully. And having a wrap vehicle, right? A lot of people actually get traction off the wrap vehicle. You know, oh, I saw your car driving down the road. So those things, while they're not targeted, can help build your brand awareness.
And I think I'm going to jump in and just say, when you look at the radio and say newspaper and magazine advertising, COVID is making a big dent there at the moment. And I think, you know, the question is, what's that going to look like in the future? Don't know, to be honest. You know, we had NZME wanting to buy out stuff or vice versa, and then, you know, it's going to be difficult to know who's going to be around going forward, but doesn't mean that it's not a valid way of getting your name out there. And I just wanted to mention that, because I know if you're thinking like you could be, oh well, radio's dead in the water because, you know, or TV's dead in the water. Well, yes, it's difficult. In fact, it might actually be easier, I think, in some ways, because their pricing needs to come back a bit to re-encourage people to start spending money there. So, you know, just because it might seem old news, just watch the space, because I think there will be a change happening, but yeah, don't discount it just because of it's old school.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and we say newspaper, I say newspaper and magazine with quotes around them because everything's online now, but it's still the publication or someplace that, you know, it could be a journal, right, that your target market reads, or whatever that is. You need just to be where they are and have your brand where they are. And sometimes that's television, sometimes it's up on a, you know, billboard in a particular part of town, whatever that is for you. The key is working with somebody that can help you sort through that and say what makes sense for you. Building your personal brand. This is about the people behind your business, your providers, right? There's a dental practice in my town that has a giant it's obnoxiously bright, but it's a giant billboard up on the side of their building. So every time you drive by, it's enormous, and you have 4 smiling dentist faces staring at you, and they have names underneath them: Dr. So, Dr. So, Dr. So, Dr. So. And
so they're quite so-so then, aren't they?
Quite so-so, yes. Dr. So and Dr. So. But no, so you immediately see who the providers are at that practice, and they look friendly and welcoming. So basically, they're building their personal brands as the people behind the business. So there's 2 different tacks you can take here. And basically, the idea is to make yourself approachable and credible. And there's lots of different ways that you as a provider can do that, even if you're not particularly extroverted, right? So there's methods that everyone can use. Building your database, pillar number 3, activities here are targeted messages to ideal prospects. So this is a direct message through email, through the post, although I would not use post right now. There's specific Facebook ad campaigns that you can specifically target your audience. There's flyers and brochures, opt-ins on your website, right? Directing people to a specific place on your website for a specific offer, and running contests, right? So how do you build your database? How do you collect people's information who might be interested in using you at some point, so you can stay in touch with them and they pick up the phone when the time's right, or they text when the time's right, or message you on Facebook to say, hey, I need an appointment. Building relationships, pillar number 4. These are things that we're going to talk about in a second, like strategic partnerships. Who can you work with who is a complementary professional services provider? Who else do your patients use that you can build an intentional relationship with to support each other's efforts in business? Referral marketing. you know, joining BNI, Venus Network. There are so many different places where you can build relationships with other people who can help talk about your business, that it's great. Existing patients with a referral program. If you don't have one, we're going to talk about that in just a second, about how to really get one in place and why it's so important. So there's heaps of different things that you can do, and this is a smattering of what's available, because I just wanted to put it on a slide. But yeah, having something in place in at least 3 of these areas. If you think of a stool, sitting on a stool with 1 leg, you're obviously going to fall over. 2 legs isn't much better. At least 3 pretty much ensures you're not going to fall over. So it's ensuring that you've got some activities with the same message, or you know, a consistent message going out across 3 different channels at least about your business.
And I'll go back to what I said earlier too. And to me, build your database is also looking at your database that's been quiet for a while.
Absolutely,
you know,
those existing clients.
Yeah.
Awesome. So a great long-term strategy that I wanted to focus on really quickly and expand just a little bit is either implementing or reviving a patient referral program. So why is this so important? I know some of you probably have programs in place, and that's cool, but are you actively engaging in them, or are they just kind of an afterthought? I think sometimes that happens. You start out with a hiss and a roar, and it works great for a little while, and then you kind of forget about it, or you put it on the shelf. So before, people love to talk, and unfortunately, people love to talk about bad experiences more than they like to talk about good experiences. So 83% of people say, I love doing my homework, right? So I love bringing you numbers. 83% of people say they would happily refer a positive experience, but only 29% of people actually do. So I think that means the other X percent, math quickly,
70, yeah,
again, you know, or should be encouraged or perhaps externally motivated to do so, which is a referral program, right? Giving them a thank you or a reward for doing so. They need a bit of a nudge. So let's look a little bit at the effectiveness of people talking to people. 15 to 20% per year. What does that mean? Most dental practices on average have natural patient attrition of between 15 and 20% per year. And that's just normal, right? If your practice has 2 chairs, that means you're going to find, need to find between 15 and 20 new patients a month. If you have 4 chairs, that's 30 to 40 new patients a month. So that's in order to stay sustainably growing. So 81% of people, right, in the world in general, are influenced by social media mentions by friends. So if you're not on social media, maybe you should be, if you deal with the public. So, which you do. So we've got 81% of people who will see, my dentist gave me a blah, blah, blah today, or, you know, it was so much fun, or something. I don't see many posts like that, but if there were, I would pay attention to them, right? Because that's something where it kind of perks up your ears a little bit. And, oh, that was a great experience. That's a little unusual. Referrals are responsible for 63% of new patients in dental practices on average. So 63% of new patients are from referrals. That's more than any other dental marketing strategy that I am aware of. So it makes sense to have a robust program in place, but you got to know the rules. Obviously, patient care trumps, financial rewards. So any rewards you got to provide has to be considered, in the best interest of your patients, and not give preferential treatment and all that fun stuff. But if you know the rules, then we can sort out what makes sense for you in implementing a referral program. Let's take a couple of quick looks at a couple of quick things that you could do. Creating a referral card. Now, granted, this is an example. It does have a name on there. I don't think it's real though. A referral card that you can give every patient on their way in or out of your practice, and explain to them how it works and what's in it for them. People love what's in it for me.
And you've got to make it easy for the person making the referral. So
yes, absolutely, or else it won't work, because they don't want to work hard. And let them know that it's, unlimited rewards. The more they refer, the more they'll get. So it's not like this is only good for one. You don't just want one referral, you want as many as they can give you. You could send thank you notes or emails to every patient after their appointment. Patients who feel valued are going to be much more inclined to talk about you. Hey, I just got a thank you email from my dentist for going in to see him yesterday. It was just a cleaning. You know, wow, that was kind of cool. It sounds silly, but it could actually make quite an impact. You could give gifts, right? Give a gift to every new patient, and if they've been referred from someone specific, track your referrals. You know, give a gift to the patient who referred them, and don't be cheap. Remember when you were a little kid and you went to the arcade and you played all the games and you got all the little tickets that the machine spit out, and you had a fistful of them, and you go, oh, I'm going to get something really good with this, and you take it up to the counter and you redeem all those tickets that you worked so hard for, and you got what? A plastic bug.
I'm just sitting here thinking, probably states orientated, Jennifer. You know, we didn't have a lot of those sort of machines over here, but you know, just
you play video games, you get little tickets, you take the tickets up to the counter and you can redeem them for a prize.
So you get a pen.
You get a pen or a pack of gum, right? It's nothing exciting. So, you know, find something for them that is awesome, that helps them remember that it's a really good thing to refer your practice. The second long-term strategy I want to peek into really quickly is building strategic partnerships, which we already kind of talked about, with other health professionals that you can either do a marketing or referral alliance with. So GPs, nutritionists, specialists of some sort. Have a think about what other medical professionals in your community your you know, patients are seeing, and perhaps make it a point to get in touch with them, set up a chat and say, hey, how can we actively support each other with the growth goals that we have? Perhaps it's simply putting cards in each other's reception areas or on a notice board. I've seen lots of places that will put, actually sometimes there are too many, but you go in and there's a counter full of cards. Maybe it's something as simple as that. Or maybe it's something meaty like packaging your services together somehow. I don't know how that looks, but it could work for you. It's just getting creative, I think. Finally, we believe that creating educational content and sending that out to your target market in the form of videos, articles, live streams, and how-tos can help you get to be seen as the expert in your area. That's that personal brand thing, right? It's building some credibility, being seen as someone who knows what you're talking about. So we attempt to do this every month here, and by putting articles and resources up on our website and sharing that information out through our social media. And talk about a social media guru, whether you like her or not, this person has been really popular. Dr. Sasha. So she's a Kiwi doctor who runs live Facebook sessions with people and has been doing that for a couple of years. She takes questions, does kind of back and forth thing. Well, what a great way to build your following while helping in providing good information. Now, ultimately, for over a couple of years, she took questions from viewers, and now she's launched an app that helps you find a provider based on the questions and the things that she got from her viewers. So talk about a great way to monetize helping people. That's, I thought, a great example of utilizing live streaming as a way to build your credibility and get in front of a heap of people. So what the heck's this picture? You know how when you get a bunch of glasses together and someone runs their finger around the edge and they each make a different sound, right? That's a different tone. It was the only thing I could find when I was attempting to visually portray the word tone. But considering what we've just come through as a country, and knowing that there's still financial hardship and hard times that are coming through the rest of this year, your communication and your marketing out to your prospects and your patients needs to be hitting the right tone, right? Meet them where they are right now. Let them know you're empathetic, you're there to help, and you know, you're still around to support them. And how can you do that?
Yeah, when I first saw that, Jennifer, I thought you were promoting sugary drinks to bring people back into the dentist.
Oh, maybe so.
Or the medical. Yeah.
Now that would be unethical. So basically, you just want to encourage them to, you know, continue to take care of themselves, even if they have limited dollars, and that you're willing to come to the table and help, and you're bringing great information to them. Now, it might be tempting to discount, right? I think it's always better to, with your long-term strategies, to provide heaps of value rather than discount your services. I know that might seem difficult because you mentioned something earlier about the guy down the street who's always undercutting, whatever. That might seem difficult when the guy around the corner is a bit cheaper, but the onus is really on you to sort out how you can really compel your prospects to seek you out, even though you might be a bit more expensive. But because what you provide is great quality. Now, I know my husband and I have learned our lesson so many times when we've gone to the store looking for a DIY tool or a piece of clothing, and we thought, oh, that one's a little cheaper. I'll get that one. Mistake.
Yep.
You never buy the cheapest thing, right? It's just usually a mistake because it's not going to do what you want it to do. It's not going to last. Yeah, so ensure that your message and your marketing and your service gives your patients and prospects that feeling of confidence in you that you've got the goods.
And you got to remember the spend for medical and dental is on the person. What is the most valuable thing to a person? It's normally themselves.
Yep.
So it's a matter of finding the right message to them so that they're getting that value for money regardless of what's been. Me personally, when I won't name my dentist because I don't want anyone else going to him, but I've followed him around the country because of the way that they do business.
That speaks volumes. That's cool. Yeah. All right. So the last thing that we want to consider, I know not the last thing in our minds at all, but is keeping profitability front of mind when you're thinking about growth and when you're thinking about pulling together your long-term strategy. The results of some of the activities we talk about are a bit hard to assess, but coming up with some sort of measurement that helps you identify whether what you're doing is working or not is vital, and it's going to help you gain a bit of traction. For example, if you design a patient referral program, design it so the cost of acquiring that new patient is manageable for the long term. So this requires taking that patient's lifetime value into account, which is significant.
Yeah, so lifetime value for most people is the amount of time they're with you. And so if you've got a person who pays $500 a year and they're with you for 10 years, that's $5,000 client. If they're with you for 20 years, they're a $10,000 client.
So investing $100, 2% of that
is nothing.
Yeah.
Because what that can do is that you not only pick them up, you pick a friend up that doesn't cost as much to bring on. And if you look at this, your spend, I guess, for the whole marketing sphere, whether it's radio, newspaper, Facebook, you name it, if you actually added up what that costs per person, with, you know, sometimes you go, I bought on 2 people and I spent $1,000 on all that sort of advertising, then what is a gift of $100? Because a gift of $100, if it's the right gift, has more value to the person than seeing your advert somewhere.
Absolutely. So yes, considering your lifetime value when it comes to what you're willing to invest to earn a new patient or to bring a new patient on board is key. But having somebody who can help you measure your efforts is helpful. And
the other thing when we're talking in this area, profit and loss, is that Jennifer's already shown you that you got 15 to 20% is normal attrition. Now, people who die can't control that. But those who leave because you've upset them or they think they can get something better elsewhere, it doesn't necessarily take a lot of spend to keep them.
To make them feel valued.
That's right. And so that could be the first area that you spend your money to stop the attrition, reduce your attrition percentage.
Patient nurturing program. Brilliant. So moving forward, in the interest of time, we've got a couple of things that I wanted to share with you really quickly. You saw this earlier on in the session as a bonus for hanging in there with us. I'm happy to send you this full resource, right? The 4 pillars of marketing. And all you got to do is ask for it by just typing yes in the chat box now, and I'll send that out to you within the next 24 hours. So if you open up your chat function, which should be on the bottom toolbar for you, if you click that open, type all presenters, right? Make sure presenters and hosts is listed there, and type yes. I'll make sure to get that and send it out to you. And remember, I mentioned I'm also working on the resource that Craig's talking about with the long-term strategies as a second bonus, but I'll let you know when that's available. So awesome. Coming up, we are kicking off in the month of July a 6-week virtual mastermind. So today we've really been talking about how you as leaders in your practices need to ensure that you're setting aside time to look at that big picture and to create your strategy and to coordinate your efforts with others around you to help you reach your goals. And really that includes, it's a mindset shift from being a soloist to being a conductor, right? That bringing the team around you to help you. Well, in just a little bit, I'm going to give you the opportunity to participate in this mastermind group that we're facilitating. And of course, it's remote. It'll be done over Zoom, called Leader Shift. And it's based on a book by John Maxwell. who's written over 70 books on leadership. And it basically covers the 11 key shifts in thinking that today's leaders need to master in order to be most effective, right? I'll talk to you about how you can participate in that in just a moment. Now, if you've got any questions, as John mentioned at the beginning of the session, if you could type those into the Q&A section over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to cover what's coming up, and then I'll pop into the Q&A to see if there are any questions whatsoever. So type in your Q&A section if you have a question for me. All right, so that mastermind on leadership. Craig, how do these work really quickly? How do the masterminds run? Because you've done so many of them.
Pretty much, you have a group of, the group have a bit of a read through of what's going on. You might choose to do a chapter or two, then you get together and discuss it, and we facilitate the discussion. So we have input from our knowledge, you have input from what you've read, and at the end of the day, the multitude of people's views actually help you learn.
Yep, so it's a great meeting of the minds around specific topics that can help you to grow, right, and grow your abilities as a leader and as a business professional. So if you've been with us over the past couple of months, you have heard of short-term interventions, right? We've rolled these out over the past couple of months that are just really short-term targeted things that we can help you with at this time. I have brought back, those have expired, but I've brought back one of them just this month, and it's for marketing. So it's the marketing support short-term intervention. Basically, it's 3 40-minute coaching sessions and brainstorming sessions around clarifying your overall business growth goals, sorting out a sensible long-term strategy to support those goals, and an implementation plan that can help you get some traction to get from here to there. That's what that's all about. Short and sweet. If you want information on either one of those things, here's what you need to do. Email Craig and Jennifer at generate.solutions. I know it's a long email, sorry. And put marketing or mastermind in the subject line, and I'll get back to you within the next 24 hours with more details, pricing, all that good stuff. So that's what you need to do. Now, do we have any questions? Let me pop into the Q&A really quickly and see. No. All right. Going once, going twice. Sold. No questions. Here is what's coming up over the next couple of weeks. Next couple of months. In July, we'll be talking about communication. So Craig and I are both certified DISC communication consultants, right? Behavioral style consultants. We're talking about how to better connect with your team, with your patients, right? Using tools that are easy to use that can help you to identify where someone's coming from so you can connect a bit better. Understanding people's different natural styles and running more effective meetings. So this whole communication topic. August will be all about teamwork, and September is how do we finish out that last quarter of the year strong. So we'll be talking about 90-day planning. So that's what's coming up. And why do we do these things, right? Why is this important? To grow you so you can grow your people and your practice can grow. So that's us for this month. I hope you've learned something helpful. And yeah, Craig and myself will be here next time.
Thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, team.
Bye.
Hi. Jen Myers here. I hope you enjoyed that video and it got you thinking about how to implement that topic into your practice. If you have any questions whatsoever, myself or Craig, we are more than happy to answer questions for you and help you understand how to apply what you've just watched and what you've just heard into your specific practice in your unique situation. So please click the button that says book a meeting, and we are more than happy to spend a few minutes with you going through the information and how you can apply it. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.